Season 6 introduced a few new vehicles, switched up the Grand Race rotation and routes, and 70 cars were rebalanced with either buffs or nerfs, so it's time for an update to the Grand Race meta. Let's go! All right, real quick before we get into it, if you're looking for any of my pro settings, you're going to go to militiagamingco.com, click on Motorfest tools from the top, and there you will find a bunch of tools, including the pro settings that I've done. It's the easiest place to get it, and I'm not including pro settings in this video, so that's where you're going to want to go, militiagamingco.com. All right, let's talk about the various classes. First, I want to say that if you've never watched one of my Grand Race videos before, I basically break this into a few categories because a lot of cars are usable, but there's really only one really good car in every class. So I'm going to give you the meta, the best car in the class. I'm going to give you a couple vehicles that will be used for special occasions or special uses, and then I'll give you my favorite viable options, meaning they can be used in the Grand Race. They're not going to be a complete detriment to your finishing position, but they're also not as good as the best in class. All right, starting with all of the classes that had 0 changes from Season 5 to Season 6. Street 1, the best car in the class is the 911 RS 2.7 with a special use of Audi RS2 Avant. If you try to take the RS2 Avant on a highway route, you're going to get smoked by the 911. So use the RS2 only in really tight technical gutter heavy scenarios. In drift, the car you want is the Unicorn. There's a couple of other cars, but this one is definitely the way to go. It's the best in class by a mile. In racing, it's the T50S with a Gallardo Super Trofeo as your highway route car. That car is really specific to highway routes. It's got a really good top speed, and that's the one you want to go with. In hyper, we're looking at the Agera R at the very top, and then special uses would be the T50 and the 110, and honestly the T50 really struggles in a lot of ways compared to the Agera R, so it's really not a good pick over the Agera R if you can drive the Agera R. If you can't drive the Agera R, then I recommend the T50 because it's got good speed, good acceleration, good NOS power, etc. The 110 is really specific, and this one for me, the specific use for this is gutter heavy routes and high speed highways, places where you don't actually have to turn the car at high speed. If you're just on the highway, the car does fine. It's got good top speed, and it really does do well when you get it into a gutter situation due to the all-wheel drive. For Alpha GP, you're looking at the RB14 or the Disruption Edition. Both of those cars handle very similarly. I use the RB14 mostly just because I can put my wrap on it, but you can use the Disruption Edition if you'd like as well. There's not really any special use cases for Alpha GP. Most of the cars handle the same. In motocross, it's the YZ450F, and I went back and tested some of these bikes after the rebalancing, and I'll tell you, the YZ450F is still the best. It's not as far out there in front, but it's definitely still the best. In rally, it's still the Peugeot 205 with the Countryman All 4 as your special use. The Countryman is really good for routes that are really bumpy, like almost rally raid routes that you're off-road a lot. The Countryman actually does a little bit better. For Monster and Plane, you're looking at Silverado for Monster, the P51 for Plane. There's not really any competition in those classes. All right, let's talk about the classes that actually got a meta change. The one that's the most important because it's the biggest change of the season is Street 2. The GR Supra or the Ryogen Edition are going to be your best picks for Street 2 in the majority of cases. Now, the F40 is still an absolute monster and can be used pretty much anywhere that there's not like a long highway stretch. So if you feel more comfortable using the F40, I think the majority of players are going to gravitate towards that F40 because it's a lot easier to control. It has a higher lateral G and it handles really nice compared to the Supra. But the Supra, if you know what you're doing, you can get much more out of it. It's almost like the Agera R. The Agera R is the best car in the class, but if you can't handle it, you're obviously not going to drive the best with it. So I would say the F40 with the higher lateral G, much better for really tight technical routes, or if there's a lot of gutters and you don't take gutters very well, I think the F40 is the best choice. But the GR Supra, absolutely the best all-around car in the class. If I don't see the route at all, if I just forget to look at the route, I'm going to default to the Supra because I know it can perform in almost every situation, and I can't say that for the F40 when it comes to anything on the highways. So definitely super number one, F40 special use. And then for the Hurricane, I use the Hurricane mostly for highways. There's only really a couple of routes that make this actually viable, but it is a special use case because it is the best for those routes, particularly if you get a slipstream with another person using a Hurricane. The problem with the car is that it just takes forever to get to top speed. Once you get to top speed, it's the best in class, and it handles well enough to take everything else. So it's one of those cars where it's really, really special use in that scenario. All right, the other class that I made a change to, the very top car, was Rally Raid. I used to have the Tacoma set in the best position, and I still think the Tacoma is really, really good. But since the new routes have come in and the types of Rally Raid routes we're being given, the BMW Z4 really does better on the majority of the routes. It's really just all around a better car. It doesn't struggle as much with tight technical courses because it actually accelerates a lot better than the Tacoma. So BMW Z4 is the top. That should be your default pick. If you're on a route that has a lot of like heavy downhill bombing, the Tacoma has a better top speed, so it's absolutely a much better pick. And the 959 Raid, I have this in special use because it's really good for tight technical courses because it's really grippy. So this car actually does really well in those situations. But to be honest with you, you can definitely keep up with the 959 in the Z4. So I wouldn't put too much stock in that, but it is there definitely. Let's move on to the viable cars. This is where the biggest changes are in this season because they've added a bunch of cars, they've rebalanced a bunch of cars, and so there's a lot of cars here. These are just my favorites, and I won't say that the viable category is limited to what I'm showing you here. This is just what I prefer to drive, what I think is good. So I want to talk about only the new cars. I'll flash the whole list all at the end so that you can see everything in the meta and you can screenshot it and move on. All right, so starting off in Street 2, the Dodge Demon Awaken Edition had a huge improvement with the rebalancing, and so I definitely find that to be very viable and fun to use. It's kind of nice to be able to use like an American rear-wheel drive muscle car type car in these races that really wasn't possible in the past. So that's a nice one. I did add that to the bottom of my viable category. I think it's slightly faster than the Haru edition, doesn't handle quite as well, but it's definitely good for like higher speed sections. It's one of those ones that just has a lot of acceleration, a lot of top speed. And that's kind of it for Street 2. Let's move into racing. This is the category that had the most changes. We've got a couple of new cars and then a couple of older cars that I retested and have found some better luck with. The KTM Expo Red Bull Ring Racing Edition. This is a new car for this season, and it is very good. I would put it at the very, very top of my viable category. I almost wanted to put it in special use, but there's not really a specific thing that it does really well. This car can absolutely compete with the T50. The problem is the T50 is still a little bit better. So if you have two drivers with the equal skill and they're both driving well, the Red Bull is just going to lose every single time. So it is very hard to put this in this category. I feel like it belongs just below the T50. I feel like it's better than everything else in the viable category. So have fun racing with that one. And also in terms of new cars, we got the Ferrari 488 GT3 AF Corsa. That car is good and fast, and it has very similar stats to the Red Bull car, but this one is just a little bit too understeery for it to really be good. It is really viable though. This is a car you can definitely use and do fine with in the grand races, so I put it on my viable list. And then the two cars that I brought back, older cars, are the Proto Hup 1. I've talked about this car before. This car is actually really fast, but it does like really bad slow shifting, so it takes a little bit, and if you find yourself in the wrong gear, it becomes a problem. But the car handles really good. It just has a really slow turn-in, so that slow turn-in actually needs to be accounted for when you're taking your turns. You kind of have to drive it a little differently, but the car is really, really good. And then the Volkswagen Electric R. This car is actually insane, but you really need to manage your NOS. It's easy to use too much NOS with this car because the acceleration is so addicting when you get going and you just start blasting the NOS. So anyways, those are the four new cars in the viable category for racing. Let's move on to hyper. I put two new cars here because of the rebalancing. The Senna had an insane improvement from before in season 5 to season 6. I highly recommend you go out and try this car. The only problem is that when you get used to using the Agera R, the T50 or something like that, or even the Jesko, it has really, really good handling. You get into the Senna and you're like, man, this car kind of understeers just a little bit. But if you don't have that comparison frame of mind, you'll actually really like the Senna. I think the Senna accelerates well. It's very, very viable in the grand races. In addition to that, the 488 Pista. The 488 Pista is actually a monster. I really like it in these grand race routes particularly. It is extremely grip to the road, and it has a very good turning radius, so it's a car you can actually use. It's got, you know, mid acceleration and good top speed, so it's a car that's just like all around really good. I would say this is a very good all-around choice for pretty much anybody. And then we move to Alpha GP. We've got the RB20 as the new addition to the viable category. It's fine. AGP, there's not a lot of difference between those cars. They're all really grippy. They all turn really well. They all accelerate really good. And especially if you're in slipstream, everything seems like a rocket ship. So the RB20 is good. It's fine. I don't see it taking the spot of the RB14, but it definitely is viable in the races. And then finally, if we move into rally, you're looking at the Puma. The Puma was a new car this season, and it actually does really, really well. It just doesn't have the solo pace to really compete with some of the top cars. I put it in the viable category because I think its suspension feels a lot better than a lot of other cars. So when you're driving it, it feels more controllable. Even on some of the bumpier sections where I would gravitate towards the Countryman, I think the Puma actually does a lot better to just be in control. So it's definitely something I recommend you try. You might really like the car. And yeah, rally is just still dominated by that Peugeot. So there you go. The Puma is in the viable category. Now, a couple of cars that I actually removed from my viable category. I've got the Viper Lightning Edition and the F12 Berlinetta from Street 2. We got the Bolide and the FXXK in racing, and then the Ford GT Interception Unit and the Revuelto in hypercar. All right, that's it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any cars that you really like, please add that in the comments below, because I want to see what other cars everyone else is finding to be viable. As far as the meta goes, though, those cars that I mentioned are absolutely the best of the best, and there's not really any suggestions that you guys can give that'll pass up one of those. Now, you may be faster with a certain car or not, but that's okay. Just give me some viable options. That way anyone watching this video can, go through the comments and maybe get some ideas for some other cars to use. I just like to help out the community. Hopefully you guys do too. So throw your favorite cars in the bottom in the comments. All right, that's it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Hopefully this helps. And if you have any questions, send me a DM on Instagram or Discord. I read every single message that comes my way. Thank you so much. I will catch you on the next one. Trigger out.